Last time on the Wizardcast.
We got terrible news, Brian. Terrible.
What? Well, what happened, Mark? What's wrong?
Okay. Don't tell anybody else yet. Because we can figure this out. I accidentally kind of crashed the code black super duper secret Salesforce instance.
No, not the one that controls the global weather.
Yeah, and now there are blizzards in the Midwest. In mid-April, there's tornadoes in the Southeast. If we don't get this instance up soon, the weather may destroy everything, Brian.
Sweet St. Mollis, what did you do?
He kind of disabled the safeties on Einstein and asked him to divide by 0.
Well, it should recover from that one quickly enough. I mean...
Yeah, well, then I asked him why ketchup is good on fries but terrible on mashed potatoes.
We're doomed! Doomed!
And now the conclusion of the Wizardcast.
I'm Brian Kwong.
And I'm Mark Ross.
We're Salesforce experts that love talking about technology and Salesforce.
We also love humor. Doesn't mean we're actually good at it.
In the Salesforce community, I'm known as the Salesforce Wizard, likely due to me wearing a wizard hat at Salesforce events.
And I'm known as Salesforce Yoda for pretty much the same reason.
You should see the ears.
We have a passion to help educate and entertain people.
So we've joined forces to create Wizardcast.
We've got tips and best practices.
We talk with interesting people.
All mixed with quote-unquote jokes and humor.
Welcome
to the
Wizardcast.
Guy walked into a bar with a slab of asphalt under his arm. He says to the bartender, "I'll take a beer and one for the road."
No, that's terrible. Drinking and driving is just not a good idea.
Neither is drinking and joking, but here we are. Thanks to Daniel Sieff for providing that joke.
Oh, it's the joke.
Yes, Brian, is a joke. What did you think it was?
I thought you were advocating people to take a beer on the road.
Why would... No! That's terrible.
That's what I said.
Who do you think I am?
I don't know, but you're the one that said it.
If you have a joke that Brian won't understand, share it with us. Contact us on Twitter at wizardcast_pod or email us at wizardcast@thewizardnews.com. You know, that music tells us that we're already coming up on our actual content. That joke was pretty short this time. Don't you think we need something between us and the main content?
Oh, you mean something semi-funny, informational, and reflects our special, unique personalities?
Something like that, except we never have anything like that.
Then you want to check out Libsyn, one of the largest podcast hosting companies.
Oh, jeez.
So if you have a podcast or you want to start one, check out signup.libsyn.com and get a free month with the promo code PODMAGIC. We use Libsyn for the Wizardcast, and we love how easy it is to upload and share a new episode.
Okay, that wasn't what I was talking about, for the record, and you taking advantage of me to shill your little money-making scheme or whatever it is, I'm offended, Brian. I'm offended.
Look, until the sponsors come back, I have to do anything and everything possible. I got those people who keep knocking at the door, telling me I gotta pay up. And I don't want my legs broken, Mark. I need my legs, Mark.
Look, I know the people from Land's End can be very violent, but maybe you should order less flannel. Okay? I'm just saying. Just saying.
But I love their coats, and have you tried their hats? I mean, you
have a problem, Brian.
You need more than one.
And you need help. You need to get help.
And I look so good in flannel, especially the plaid flannel.
First step, Brian. You admit you have a problem.
It makes me wish
Brian.
I was a lumberjack. And I would sing.
Okay, we've gone too far now. Can we go to our actual content?
Okay.
It's almost, you're bordering on copyright infringement with that one.
Our guest has been at Salesforce for 3.5 years and started there as an engineer on the team that delivered global pick lists. Later, he took over the team as product manager working on custom metadata types. For the past year and a half, he's been successfully applying his martial arts skill in the way of the Iron Fist to fight competing priorities and deliver awesome features to the customers. Welcome, Vladimir Gerasimov.
Oh, thank you, guys. It's super cool to be here with you today, and I listen to your podcast quite often, so it's good to be actually face screen to screen with you.
Flattery gets you everywhere.
Normally we say pay no attention to the men behind the curtain, but you're getting this sneak peek into the chaos.
Yeah. Yeah, as we always make it very clear, we're the most organized and professional podcast about Salesforce that is out there.
See, he laughed immediately. He knew
that we're lying.
Yes.
So, you reached out to me, Vladimir, through Twitter after I think it was during my mad self-promotion about a blog post I wrote about custom settings and custom permissions. I can't remember one of those two. Asking if I've been playing around with custom metadata types. I've been familiar with custom metadata types, but I haven't really played around for them too much as an admin. So first off, because this is still a fairly new feature, what the heck is a custom metadata type?
Well, cool. Yeah, that's. I guess it will be a good start. And I start thinking that custom metadata types are not that new anymore, because it's been over 2 years since we went to GA. So I no longer want to think as a new feature, and shame on you if you don't know about custom metadata types. There's no more excuses, like you're super late to the party, you that guy who came that late that everyone already drunk there. So custom metadata types, if I can describe them pretty shortly, this is a type that you use to do a configuration of your app or of your org. So everything that you store that is not specifically a business data, but defines the behavior of your app, of your org, of your business processes, should go to custom metadata types. So now people often ask, we have custom objects, we have custom settings. Why the heck in a world we need a third type? Well, the answer is not to get it more confusing, but there are some cool things that support it on custom metadata types, and I'll be talking mostly as a developer right now. First of all, it's cacheable, so meaning when in your app you do SOQL queries, those do not count against your limits. Unlike custom objects, for instance, they provide a way better level of protection. So all we know is that you can protect a custom setting, meaning that custom setting will not be visible in a subscriber org. Well, with custom metadata types, we take it to a whole new level. You can protect the type, same as custom settings. You can protect specific records. So you can make the whole type visible and protect only part of records. And now you'll be asking, how the hell I can protect the records if I'm not able to bring them within my package? Well, that's the biggest advantage of custom metadata types, is that records of custom metadata types are packageable. So they consider it metadata. So you can create all your records that specify behavior of your app. You can package them in your manage, unmanage, or change set, and deploy into your org. And we allow you to make sure that the specific fields on that custom metadata types are either locked, meaning that no one can change a value there, developer controlled, meaning that you can issue an upgrade package, for instance, or they subscriber editable, meaning that you leave that value up to subscriber to update or to define even, right? So in general, it's been a pretty big deal for ISVs and anyone who tried to develop on a platform. And recently we start expanding our audience into admins. And I don't know if I'll just keep going talking, or you just...
No, I love guests who interview themselves.
Keep going.
Great. Okay. I'll just keep going then. So we start expanding into admin functionalities as well. And it is already a good feature for admins if you think about it. If you're an admin in an org that installs packages or develop packages or do any sort of configuration, the biggest pain previously was, how do I move stuff across my org? Let's say I have a staging environment, I have sandboxes. I make a bunch of changes. I need to push stuff into my production. After I did it, all I push is metadata, and now I need to recreate all the records, do all those crazy data imports and stuff. So it
Right.
all adds up as a cost for admins, right? We developers, or like you developers, don't think about admins doing actually post-deployment work after they're done with installations. So admins already start appreciating it a little bit. And actually, I know that recently you had Cheryl on one of your podcasts. She was the biggest inspiration for what we're doing right now, because she was telling me that she as an admin is super excited about custom metadata types. And I started thinking, well, if she's excited, how can I make sure that everyone else is even more excited? So with this year, what we're doing, we're opening up custom metadata types and declarative tools. So now you will be able to reference records of custom metadata types in your validation rules, formula fields, default values, even process builder eventually.
First off, I'm going to say I really do like custom metadata types, particularly because they're deployable, and not just the metadata, like the fields and everything, but the actual records are deployable, which is fantastic.
We should also probably throw a safe harbor in there, right? For the stuff that's not out yet. A forward-looking statement.
No, everything's deployable.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Oh, it's already that way?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, I thought you were saying there was something later in...
Again, you're late to the party.
Yeah.
No, I've used them before. I thought you said that something was coming, so I
declarative part is coming, and I'll talk about
that
a little bit.
That's the safe part.
Forward-looking statement. So I do love the fact that they're deployable, but we already had custom settings. So why not just make custom settings deployable? Wouldn't that, in effect, do everything that custom metadata types does, with the exception of maybe the special sharing or protectiveness at the record levels and the fact that they're deployable? I mean, what's the difference otherwise?
Well, that is a tough question.
We only ask the tough questions here on the Wizardcast.
This is a tough question. Well, I would say, unfortunately, some of the part is just the nature of the platform. And I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but very often it is way cheaper and more effective to implement something new.
And that's a fair answer. That's a perfectly fair answer.
The way custom settings were implemented and the way they're sharing a lot of commonalities with custom objects were a pretty big technical obstacle in the past, and specifically around the caching and stuff. So that was a main concern when they were introducing that.
Okay. So
and my understanding is that correct me if I'm wrong, that custom settings are largely tied to specific users and profiles, whereas custom settings or custom metadata is not.
Yeah, so there are two flavors of custom settings. You're absolutely right. So there are list custom settings and hierarchical custom settings. Mm-hmm. So list custom settings, at least 90% replaceable with custom metadata types. We are closing the last gaps. At some point, I don't want people use list custom settings anymore, because there wouldn't be no reason other than my grandmother used to do that way. Right? Hierarchical custom settings are different, because there's the whole concept of custom metadata types being fully metadata kind of thing, where records are metadata as well. Doesn't really align with hierarchical custom settings because they tie to specific profiles. So I would imagine hierarchical custom settings will still be there for a while. We have as an idea, we have what we're gonna do with hierarchical custom settings in terms of custom metadata type, but that is sort of so far on my roadmap. I don't think we actually put any thoughts about it yet.
It's a lower priority, yeah.
Just create a lookup field to profile and user, right, on a custom metadata type. Yeah,
but then how would you link everything?
Painfully.
Yeah.
All right. So you pretty much already answered the question I was going to ask you next, which was, if I'm an admin or a developer and I'm starting from scratch, what you're telling me is that unless I need the hierarchical feature from custom settings, I really should consider using custom metadata types instead.
Yes, that is an honest answer. You should be considering custom metadata types. There are still few gaps that some people find annoying. They are not showstopper gaps, but we're still working on bringing better support for custom metadata types in tests. So right now, there is no way to create an instance of custom metadata type inside your test, right? So good news that we are really working on it. It's not like just on a roadmap. We actually getting our hands dirty on that stuff. So I don't know if we will be able to show anything by Dreamforce, but I would say next couple releases, and forward-looking statement applies here, and anything I say further down. But we are really working on that. And with the help of a beautiful Apex team that is led by Chris Peterson, who I'm sure you all heard about.
Oh, yes. I harass Chris on a weekly basis.
Since there are a fair amount of admins, especially, who are late to this party, I would like to do the following. I would like to kind of describe what I see, what I've used custom metadata for, and you tell me if I've gotten anything wrong. So from an admin perspective, think of it like a custom object in that you make fields, and each custom metadata type is basically an object, and you can create the custom fields that are on it. The main difference is that you're able to make records in that custom object which are accessible anywhere. You don't have to have a relationship to another object. It is basically a universally available object with universally available records. Is that more or less on point?
I'm not quite sure what do you mean by universally available, because that might sound
Yes, absolutely, but it's something that like you're working towards.
Okay, yeah.
So you can access those records in formulas and validation rules in process. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would put it that way. So think about it as a custom object that the type that acts exactly like for admin perspective, acts exactly like a custom object where you can create a record, and let's say in your validation rule, you can use a value from a specific record to validate something. Like say you store a discount, right? So instead of hard coding, like if discount is greater than 0.25, then throw the validation error. You can put a custom metadata type reference there. And anytime you need to update, you just go and update a record. And in fact, if you do it in your sandbox, you can easily transfer it via change set, for instance, into your production. So if you never deal with any packaging, right, you still have a change sets available for you. So just because we're talking about, I want to touch base on where we are in this process so people don't get overexcited. Validation rules are currently, support of custom metadata type records in validation rules is currently available in pilot as Spring 18. It is going GA in summer 18. Woo. So you should be able to see it quite soon. I forget what's the release day, like July?
June something.
Mid-June,
I think.
Yeah, mid-June, yeah. Somewhere around June, July, you should be able to use it without bothering support to enable a pilot for you. We are currently working on two next things, which is a formal fields and default values. Since it's very early to make any promises, I don't know what exactly would make into winter 19. In my ideal world, both of those things will make it. I'm sure that at least one part of it will make in winter 19. So
you're not going to give the standard PM response that everything's 2 releases out?
No, because like we're working on this right now. It's like it is real. It's part of like, it's part of my big commitment for this year to enable custom metadata types and declarative tools.
All right. So here's what I want to kind of paint a picture of use cases for the admins are using. So from a validation rule standpoint, I already get it because I already use custom settings to do very similar things. So instead of having to have really weird, complicated logic within your validation rule, you can refer to a record and have the record provide you the data to be able to say, hey, this should be true or false to kick off an error or not. It's very similar to how you can use custom permissions to be able to say, does this user have this custom permission? Throw an error.
Yep.
So it also means that you can write your validation rules referencing a custom metadata type, and then instead of having to go rewrite a bunch of validation rules, you just have to update a custom metadata record, and suddenly everything flows down that for you. So from a validation rule, I get the use case. I think that's very, very clear, and I think a lot of people, once they stop and kind of think about it, will come up with some very great ways to use it in addition to custom permissions. When I think about formulas, that's where I kind of start scratching my head of like, when I think of like the formulas I may create on an object, how would I want to use custom metadata types in order to, or refer to them in my formulas? And the only thing I can think of would be doing something funky like I'm doing some weird calculation, like some custom pricing calculation, and so I need to refer to another table to grab data to pull into the formula. But even then, I can count on one finger the number of times that's ever come up in my 10-year career.
I can think of something. You were giving me a use case, Brian, you were worried about the other day, where you were having to calculate the number of working days.
Right.
And so what if you had a custom metadata to keep track of how many holidays there are in each year? And if you needed to factor holidays in as well. So that would be like something you could pull in from multiple formulas, just that automatic number value.
The one example that I like actually, and I think you partially covered with pricing, but in the United States, we have very complicated tax system where sales taxes varies per state.
Right.
You can store your rates inside custom metadata types and use formula field to calculate a final price, right? A price plus tax based on a state where you're gonna send that invoice, for instance, right? So, and because it's all in one place, you can easily manage those things in one place, and you can easily update them if, for instance, state of California tomorrow will decide to raise our taxes again.
So could you theoretically access then the custom metadata values via an API? So you could set up like a system to automatically update, tax values?
Yeah, of course.
Or currency conversion values?
Yeah, I was not gonna go that
That's
route.
That's multi-currency, Mark.
You can implement a multi-currency using custom metadata types, but yes,
that's the thing. Multi-currency has its own issues, some of which are deal breakers. Okay, yes, I realize I said the most obvious thing. But some of those things are deal breakers for people who want to implement it. And one of the businesses I actually have worked with wanted to do currency conversion without turning on custom currencies because it was a big problem. So this would be one way they could do it, is if they had API pushing in values into the metadata, custom metadata.
Yeah, that's one of the scenarios. I know one customer for sure who was trying to implement state and country pick lists using custom metadata types.
Without the inherent problems that come with state and country pick lists.
What problems come with state and country pick lists?
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not. Mostly it comes from any time you're pushing data from an outside source. That's
okay.
Big problem because you're trying to push address values and all of a sudden it all fails. Even, other Salesforce products like Pardot.
Yeah. You see, I clean everything I import, so it's never a
problem.
Some of us have good business practices, Mark.
So yeah, those will be some of the cases that you can implement using formulas.
Okay.
And then process, I can see all sorts of awesome stuff to do with process because it's basically configuration settings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I would hope we'll get it in Flow too.
Well, in fact, it's already in Flows. Yeah,
is it already in Flow?
Yeah.
Man, I am late to the party.
Yeah, actually, Flows were supported from the beginning. You can write your Flow query to get data from out of custom metadata types.
Oh, Vladimir, you
So-
may have just solved a really complicated logic issue I've been struggling with.
Well, you should invite Jennifer Lee to talk about flows because she's a flow expert.
You know, I love
He just
Jennifer
went
Lee.
there. Oh yeah,
I
no,
love
Jennifer's
Jennifer Lee.
amazing.
And what I always find hilarious is I've told her, Jennifer, because she actually like stalked Mark and I one Dreamforce and went like to every flow session we were doing. And I went and told her just recently, I said, Jennifer, I think if you're not you're above where Mark and I are now.
Yeah.
And she completely denies it. She goes, no, I don't understand this and this and this and this. I'm like, so what? You know this and this and this.
She wrote one of the best blog posts I read about using custom metadata types and flows. And to be honest, I learned from her some of the use cases. That's honestly, like, in my opinion, one of the best parts of being a product manager, because I learned from you guys. Like, I just wrote down some of the use cases you shared with me using formulas. So next Dreamforce session, like, you're gonna see it.
Yeah, get Jennifer. Do a session with Jennifer. That's what you should do.
It's on my list. I think we're gonna do like a big webinar about custom metadata types for admins, and I want to invite Cheryl and Jennifer, and share both of their perspectives. So I'll be just sitting there and like let them talk all the good stuff about my products.
Well, and one thing that I've used, same thing, custom settings, custom metadata for the admins who might be late to the party. If let's say you're not a solo admin, maybe you have a developer who can develop things alongside you. If they can actually put some of their configuration things, like they can do all their code, but then put the configuration part of it, the little things that you might need to tweak and change in the custom metadata, then it lets you be able to go tweak little things about how the code works without having to engage your developer every single time.
Yeah, it's admin-friendly programming.
Well, now think about that. So with the support of and validation rules, formulas, and blah, 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 you as an ISV or developer can develop a package with validation rule inside, for instance, that defines the logic of that validation rule, but leaves all the actual values up to subscriber to define. And I don't know if you guys in a ISV business or in any store,
no more failing tests.
If you package a stupid validation rule today with a managed package, no one can change it. It's a developer controlled. So no one know it's not a good practice to package validation rule, because like, what if I want to change the value in that validation rule? Unless it's something like specific that never gonna change. But now here we go. You can put even like something like regex. You can store regex inside. You can store regex inside custom metadata type and use it in a function that validates an input. Or,
I mean, it could be as simple as just putting into your validation rule an additional hook for true, or for a custom metadata that could be true or false. Yeah, and that way you can deploy your validation rule, but then they can still turn it off in custom metadata if they really want to.
Yep.
Brian is scratching his beard for those of you who are listening to an audio version of this podcast. Oh, wait, that's the only version we have.
That's not true. When Midwest Dreamin, we actually recorded our live and posted it
on
my
podcast.
YouTube.
I said this podcast. This episode.
Yes. So yeah, I was just kind of thinking, because one of the things that I always get frustrated with validation rules and programming, back when I was doing more Apex than configuration stuff, is I would write a beautiful looking class, and then I would have an admin go write a validation rule, which would destroy my test class.
Yeah.
I mean, objectively tested, and then I will get the Yale flow class. I was like, why do I have zero test coverage? And it's all because they wrote a validation
programmer.
Rule. But now think about it. If I had custom metadata types back then and I knew they existed and knew how to use them, then we could have them write the validation rule in such a way that I could just have my test class query what the custom metadata type is to incorporate in my creation of my test objects and my utility, and never have to worry about failing a validation rule and having my test class fail.
You can simply have as we talked, you can simply have a Boolean that disables all validation rules in your tests. right? So you totally your admins can write whatever they want. In your test, you just disable it.
That's a brilliant.
Technically cheating, although it would work. Like your test coverage wouldn't be dinged, but you're no longer asserting authentically. Look, I'm the non-developer here, and
you're asserting effectively.
Ethics,
You're asserting that the code that you wrote is doing what you want it to do.
That's true.
Yeah.
It is doing what you're wanting it to do when that's not in okay.
Right. Now, whether or not your code is doing what it should be doing is a completely different business problem.
Right.
Yeah, test code is never going to. Yeah.
Right.
But no, I like that. The other thing I always come across is, and I've used custom settings to this, is to be able to go through and say, I need to turn off all my validation rules for an object. Or I might use custom permissions to do that, to turn it off for just one user for like imports. Or if I have an API connecting user and I want to say, I just want to ignore everything coming from that person.
Well, now think about an admin who can turn off all the validation rules with a switch of a button.
Right.
Without even going to like a setup, just go into some custom UI that you created for your admin and saying like, I want to turn off all the validation rules at once. And it goes and underneath it updates all the custom metadata type records associated with that object and switch that flag to false.
Okay, so here's the $64,000 question. And if you answer this correctly, it doesn't matter because I don't have $64,000. If you were an admin and not a product manager, right? A mature org, so you have validation rules up the wazoo. You got processes, like 20 processes on a single object and all the other fun stuff that we do that we really shouldn't be doing. Should you take the time to say, hey, let's go forth and actually go use custom metadata types to do some of the use cases that we're doing, like being able to turn off validation rules and do you think it's actually worth the re-architecture of someone's org?
Well, I think yes. And I think
and you're not biased, whatever, right?
Of course not.
Yeah.
Like not like I'm a product manager for custom metadata types and I care, right? but analogy is like you have 5 credit cards and you deep in debt on those credit cards. And the question you're asking, should I go and try to pay off one credit card at a time to at some point maybe become debt free? Or should I just keep paying all the payments monthly and get maybe another credit card later and start using that as well, right? So the problem with a mature org is that it accumulates tons of debt. That mature org accumulates a lot of debt. And that's one of the examples that Cheryl gave during our talk that we did one time ago, that this is like all the admins are focusing like on moving to Lightning, but there are things that like anchoring them down, those things that they have to deal every day. So I'm a strong believer because I'm coming from engineering background. We all leave that behind us. Like, okay, none of us perfect. None of us implement the perfect solution in the first place. But it's important that we spend some time at least addressing some old debt. So, and I think, yes, I don't expect an org with like, I don't know, 10,000 users to jump and like rewrite everything, stop doing their business and rewrite everything. But setting a goal and saying like, well, we're going to take accounts and we're going to rewrite validation rule using custom metadata types so we can save time there and we don't need to deal with that anymore for like next 6 months. It's a perfect goal. I think so. With my biased answer, yes, you should switch immediately.
So you have anything else you want to tease out there about custom metadata types for admins? Or better yet, do you got a webinar or a good resource other than Cheryl and Jennifer W. Lee's blog post that you want to share out there?
Well, I'm working on a blog post myself to kind of wrap up everything we talked about. Since, only validation rules at GA right now, I probably hold it a little bit when we have a little bit more features out, for sure. I did a talk at Trailhead DX. Want to say it was good. I don't think I don't know if they published video yet out of that talk, but that's one entry point.
Soon. It's supposed to be soon.
Yeah, I
Might be
think
by the
it's-
time we actually publish.
Yeah, we did with my team lead, with my engineering lead on my team. We did a talk at the local Bay Area group way back in December. So it was like super early, forward-looking, statement-ish kind of talk. We didn't even have it in pilot yet. So, but that's a good entry point for everyone who wants to learn about custom metadata types. We have Trailhead module. We're gonna work on a special Trailhead module for admins specifically. So that will be super cool. So for people who do not have a lot of development experience, that will be a great start. And I don't know if any of you guys, and I don't know where this podcast will be published, but next week I'll be in New York for World Tour, where I'll be talking about custom metadata types. So if you're in New York and you hear this podcast before World Tour is over,
Should be, yeah.
Of
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah.
Just to be
Yeah,
specific.
yeah, you should find me in New York and just talk. I'm happy to share. And and definitely look forward for Dreamforce. I hope I'll get a spot there as well.
Great. Well, since we have you here, and we've wrapped up on custom metadata types, let's talk about global pick lists. Because
Eh.
it was deer in
It's
the
not- it's
headlights
not-
for a second.
It's not the worst part we can talk about.
I
Yeah,
know
let's talk about global
I
pick-
really like global pick lists
Yeah.
for a lot of reasons, because I find a lot of my customers, I end up creating the same pick list values over and over again. Or my favorite one is I always create a yes no instead of a checkbox because required checkboxes are silly, right?
And something we want to hang on. I want to rewind just a little bit. What exactly are you product manager of? Because it's not just custom metadata types, is it?
So I'm glad that you asked this question towards the end of the podcast. So I will not get grilled on some other areas, but technically I'm a product manager for custom objects, custom fields, pick lists, and custom metadata types.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you remember that
All right.
long list
Well, I
of
can't grill
complaints
you
that we
about
had,
like
Mark?
tasks or account teams or things like that.
No,
That's like,
no.
No.
Nothing out of Sales Cloud. No, I'm a platform guy.
Okay.
Not like you don't have enough to grill me on platform.
No, so I know I really enjoy global pick lists because it's made my life a lot easier. I think the only thing that I've ever gotten frustrated with them is the whole restrict values tidbit can be difficult if you don't realize how that pick list is going to get used. For example, back in the day with the old pick lists, it's if you had an API or you do a weird import and the pick list values it just added the values as a deactivated value, right? It wasn't a big deal. But now it just goes and borks the import.
Well, unrestricted pick lists actually a pretty big deal. And I understand the convenience of it that you do not fail anything when you do some import that you mess up. But I know some orgs that have a pick list with over 100,000 inactive values on a single pick list field. I don't know what sort of import was that. And at some point, my team had to address a performance issue within those orgs, because the way we designed the setup page, that they was trying to load all those values.
I'm sorry. Could you say that number again, please?
It's 100,000.
100,000.
100,000.
As in 100, comma 000.
Yeah, it's like 1 and 5 zeros. Yeah.
In a single pick list?
In a single pick list, just because that particular org been around for like 10,
Man, I wouldn't
15
think
years.
that
I
would
didn't
be
think that was
possible,
possible
because
I thought
you have a character limit on pick lists.
Yeah, it's a character limit, but not a limit on values. So unrestricted pick list technically limitless. So every time you use unrestricted pick list, someone cries on my team. So please, restricted pick lists are actually good for you because they keep integrity of the service together.
They do. That's the whole point of a pick list, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, that ranks right up there with Steve Moe talking about multi-pick lists and
Baby seals.
and baby seals being clubbed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please think of the developers.
Yeah. Although We need to get a picture of some of your folks in your team crying, because that would be a really great meme.
Sure.
Sure.
We
Why not?
can make it happen. Find me at Dreamforce. We'll make someone cry.
And there's Vladimir's episode quote. Find me at Dreamforce. We'll make someone cry.
That was a good one. Yeah, I have to say.
Pierre's not going to have any problem with that whatsoever.
I actually think if I say it with a stronger Russian accent, it sounds even better.
Oh, do it. Yeah.
It's like-
we could use that.
Find me at Dreamforce. We'll make someone cry. Right? It's a big difference.
Oh,
Is
no.
there anything else you would like to say in a heavy Russian accent? Like,
That's when I deal with the tough situations. It helps a lot. There was that New York comedian who was talking the whole story about how he would live somewhere in a terrible areas in New York, and every time someone approached him and he thinks that person is scary or might rob him, he would speak Russian accent to them.
how about, can you say, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die"?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. It doesn't sound like it's Find Me at Dreamforce.
No, that's
Yeah.
much better.
Yeah.
We usually ask one more question to our guests, but I'm not sure if this really counts considering your position. If you could, I can't even do this with a straight face. If you can ask Parker Harris one question, what would it be?
Oh man, I should have come prepared for that. Well, I'll tell you a story.
Oh, I'll
Okay.
take a story.
So I'll tell you, and then if Parker Harris is listening to this podcast, it will be hilarious. So I'll tell you a story how I made my elevator pitch to Parker Harris.
Okay.
So it happens that Parker and I work in the same building, but on a different floors. So someday, a few months ago, Parker Harris, myself, and a bunch of Salesforce people walking into the elevator. And I was in a good mood, and I was like, well, it looks like I'm going to make an elevator pitch. And Parker Harris on his phone totally ignored me. Elevator stops on the second floor. He walks out. And I was like, well, I guess I failed my elevator pitch. But
So your
if I have
question-
to ask him one question, did he ignore me on purpose, or he didn't realize that I was talking to him?
Well, I guess the question would be, did he think you were just being silly if he was paying attention, or was he concerned that you may actually have a true elevator pitch that you're about to pitch within an elevator? What would you have pitched? What would you have done if he turned to you and took you absolutely seriously and said, "Okay, let's hear it"?
You know, I always think that, and I mean, again, it's totally unbiased answer from a PM of Custom Metadata Types. But I'll tell you one little secret, that everything you see around Custom Metadata Types in past 2 years been done on average of team of 3 people.
Really?
Yep.
So
So,
imagine
and-
what you could do with 6.
Exactly. And I kind of want to, like, I don't know, I would love to have my chance to sit with Parker Harris and talk about Custom Metadata Types and talk about what we can do if we have that extra person that we can put together.
Do you know what I think this is absolutely hilarious, Mark? What if Parker actually does listen to the podcast, unbeknownst to us?
I might need to update my resume or something.
And then suddenly he gets the budget to hire an extra person with no comment, just out of the blue. Wouldn't that be just like the most tangential way to ask for a budget increase for a body? You don't go to him directly, you don't go through the channels. You go through a podcast with, a handful of listeners who just...
That's right, Jim Cramer. Wizardcast is responsible for influencing Salesforce policy and decisions. That's some mad money right there.
Yes, everyone should be buying Wizardcast shares right now.
Yeah, they pre-IPO.
Yep, absolutely pre-IPO. The
That's as free as it
LLC,
gets.
yeah, the LLC hasn't even been formally formed yet. Thank you, Vladimir. I really appreciate you being as active as you've been on social media and the community. I appreciate you taking the time not just to talk to us, but to reach out to us and listen. I know there's a lot of us who have had the pleasure of working with PMs at Salesforce that kind of take it for advantage, but this is not typical for this industry. And so thank you very much for being an engaged member at Salesforce.
Yes, absolutely. It makes all the difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me. To me, it's like one of the biggest advantage I have at this job is that community that I can engage with so easily and get all the good use cases that I learned today that I'm going to present and pretend that they are my own ideas. So,
well, don't worry. When we see him on stage at Dreamforce, Mark and I will stand up and we'll say, that was my idea. You stole it.
I just want to say, as much as as a PM, I'm always in front and talking about features. I want to also take an opportunity and say a big thank you to those 3 different people who've been working on custom metadata types over the years. Mm-hmm. We had an amazing team, and you can see from results that without the engineering team that probably still working right now at 7:30 p.m. to deliver new cool features, this wouldn't be possible. So
yes.
I just want to give a credit to engineers that been.
Yes, thank you very much. My last semi-serious question for you. Hypothetically, and I'm asking for a friend, if someone had an idea that they really wanted to get implemented or maybe moved up in the roadmap, what one thing could they provide or give you as a bribe to get it moved up or implemented sooner?
That is totally not where I thought that question was going to go.
So how you can what data can you supply and something like that. So,
yeah.
As a Russian, with strong moral principles, I do not accept bribes. First of all, but seriously, I think it's not about bribery. It's about it's about sharing. And I might sound like super biased, and say post it an idea exchange, right? And then in 10 years I'll be at Dreamforce presenting the idea that we just delivered time field recently. But I think showing a good case and showing hey Vladimir, if I can do this with custom metadata types, I will free 20% of my time a week, right? Those kind of things that easy to catch. For me, sometimes they're not that obvious. I need to go and dig and I need to work with you. If you bring me a data as a bribery, showing what you can do and how your life becomes easier with something that we can deliver, that's something I can prioritize and I can evaluate. That is the best bribery. I also like caviar.
If someone wanted to provide you with that exquisite data and maybe follow up with the caviar, how should they reach out to you?
I'm on Twitter. You can always type my name, and there's not that many Vladimir Gerasimovs on Twitter who are talking about Salesforce specifically. You can always find me in one of those trailblazer groups that used to be success groups. For custom metadata types, I'm hanging out there pretty much half of my day. Global Picklist group is another one. Timefield is most recent, where I also pay a good part of my attention. But Twitter is probably the easiest way. And again, stop by at anytime there's a Salesforce event, there's a good chance that I might be presenting there, specifically if it's in San Francisco, if it's Trailhead DX, Dreamforce. Just stop by, say hi. You don't need to stay and listen for the stuff I'm talking about, but you can come after and give me that can of caviar. You can talk.
And tell him you found out about him on the Wizardcast, because, it's got to be about us somehow.
Yeah, great. That'll be great. Add a hashtag or whatever. I mention you on Twitter. I want to see how many followers I'll get after this podcast. if I'll get at least 2, I'll consider coming again.
Okay. And we'll be putting links to Vladimir's Twitter handle as well as those Trailblazer groups he mentioned in the show notes. So if you don't want to be typing and searching, just take a look at the show notes and you'll find links there.
Sounds good. Well, thank you again, guys.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Hey, we've actually got an exciting announcement to make.
We're finally going to take over the Salesforce Admin podcast and rule with an iron fist.
No, not yet. Not
Oh.
yet. Just
Okay.
bide your time.
Jillian's safe
No,
for now.
Instead, Brian and I will be presenting at Midwest Dreamin this year, 2018, our famous, infamous session, Know the Flow Code.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this is where we share tips and rules from the holy book of the flow code to our fellow Flownatics, complete with our secret garb.
Midwest Dreamin is July 11th through the 13th in Chicago, USA. Registration is open right now at midwestdreamin.com with no G. Although you can go there with a G, it'll kick you right back to where you should be.
Wizardcast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, custom metadata party favors by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, and our intern this episode was Kristin Cecil.
And you can be an intern too. Just follow us at wizardcast_pod on Twitter.
Or just come up to us during events and tweet about us with a photo so we remember to add you to the list.
Send us your interview suggestions, jokes, videos, tips, and feedback to wizardcast@thewizardnews.com or head over to thewizardnews.com and click Contact Wizardcast.
And we want to hear from you. We're too lazy to come up with questions, so if you have one you want to ask Parker Harris, tell us what it should be.
Submit a question by going to bit.ly/ParkerQuestions and fill out our short form.
And of course, the Idea Exchange Highlights episodes are always one of the most popular ones. And if you have something you would like to share with us from the Idea Exchange, let us know.
Go to bit.ly/IdeaHighlight to submit an idea to us.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Wizardcast and receive our next episode automatically.
And please post reviews on Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, and share this episode. It helps others to have to endure the exact same thing you just had to listen to.
Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'm not Mark, but an incredible simulation.
Thanks for listening. Wait, you don't like ketchup on your mashed potatoes?
Nobody does.
I use it instead of gravy. I put gravy on my french fries. I mean, that's poutine.
That's inhuman. Or it's Canadian.